Tuldukan Natin is a podcast created by Soren Productions that will cover what you need to know about menstruation. This will cover a total of 3 episodes, and in each episode, we will be accompanied by a guest professional to share their insights. Hi guys, get ready to dive deep. I'm Janelle Velasquez.
And I'm Reizar Costan, and we're your hosts for today's episode, Tuldukan Natin.
Know the Flow featuring Dr. Issa.
With us, we have our guest, Dr. Victoria Ines Matibag, also known as OB-GYNE on Call as her social media persona.
Welcome to our podcast, Doc Issa.
Welcome po, ma'am.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. I'm so glad to be here.
Tigil po. Then, ano nga ba ang pag-uusapan natin for today?
So ayun, glad you asked dahil ito na nga. Let's start with our hashtag period story from one of our audience based sa conducted survey. So ayan, according to our sender, so dati nga daw when she was 14 years old, she had mistaken her period as dry poop because of the color. So she asked her mom about it and said that it was dry blood and that she was having her period for the first time. Oh my God, nakakabanga when you had it for the first time kasi parang di mo naman talaga alam pa. Like, iba yung hindi naman siya madalas pinapakita sa school. So, hindi mo agad alam, parang ganun ang itsura niya when you first have it.
Talaga ba? I mean, hindi rin kasi namin na-experience. So parang, minsan siya parang, di kami familiar ba or parang, ano nangyayari like afterwards.
So, usually, di ba, parang di naman siya napapakita talaga. Parang walang instrument yung teachers na parang naka-sensor siya, ganun.
Sensor
Sa
usually.
schools. So, ayun. Pero, hindi rin sila na-inform na pag yung blood kasi nag-dry na, parang iba na yung color. Kasi nga, syempre, bata ka naman nun. So, hindi mo naman alam. Parang ganun.
So, dapat din pala, parang natatakel din niya sa school or parang na papaalam sa kanila para, aware sila when the things happen. Kasi, pwedeng, yun nga, kagaya nga sa case nung nag-send, is parang akala lang nila like dry poop. Yung pala, ayun nga, meron ng period.
So, ayun nga. Since we're speaking of first menstruation, ano nga ba ang menarche?
So ako na. Okay, so yeah, glad you guys asked kasi yun nga, menarche or menarch is yung first menses ng isang babae. And actually, may sequence kasi of puberty yan. So usually, it starts with telarch or yung breast budding or yung development of the breasts. And then, after nun, nagkakaroon ng adrenarche or nagkakaroon na ng pubic hair yung mga babae. And then, after that, nagkakaroon na rin ng peak height velocity. So, usually, di ba, nga, parang napapansin natin, mas maaga nagmamature yung mga girls in school compared to the males, di ba? Tapos, parang grade school pa lang, late grade school, usually, parang nakikita na natin na medyo mas matangkad na yung mga women compared to the males, no? So, yeah, that's one of the things na nangyayari bago magkaroon ng menarche. So, yung menarche is yung final step dun sa puberty for females, okay? So, it does signal yung puberty stage ng isang babae. However, yun nga, hindi natin din natututunan to lahat sa school kasi for some reason, it's not yet well incorporated into our sexual education dito sa Philippines.
Hindi pa siya masyado, actually ngayon ko lang din po siya nalaman. Ngayon na, ayun, nagtitesis kami, right, about it. So, ba't po yung iba mas maaga nagkakaroon? Anong age po ba siya usually?
So among Filipinas, so there was a study from Cambridge na last 2018, no? So they did a study on Filipinos and the average age is around 13 years old, no, for menarche. So ibig sabihin, all of the rest of the things that I mentioned, yung telarch, adrenarche, yung peak height velocity, they all happen prior to that, no? So yung mga yung mga pathologic na precocious puberty or maagang mag-mens. So, usually, hindi nangyayari yung mga stages na yon and they just go straight to menarche. So, and this usually happens yung pag below mga 8 years old na yun yung mga abnormal talaga.
So, ano po yung dapat gawin ng mga adults sa bahay when parang pag yung girls sa bahay, ayun, nagkaroon na po ng first menstruation nila.
Yeah, so the first thing is talaga na they should do is really educate these little girls about what menstruation is, no? Kasi in our culture talaga, medyo nagkakaroon ng parang hiya towards these things, di ba? And usually, the little girls na yung tinuturuan. Even the males, di ba, or the little boys don't know about these menses. Tapos nagtutuksuhan na, di ba? Ay, may period blood, ganon. Kadire, ganon, di ba? So it's deeply rooted in our culture na parang nandidiri tayo when it comes to period blood when dapat hindi, or dapat na-normalize siya among as early as pag children pa lang sila, di ba? Dapat na-normalize na to. And yun nga, it really all boils down to education talaga. Kasi hindi to masyadong incorporated again nga dun sa mga lessons natin in science or biology, which dapat na-incorporate din talaga natin. So, yun. Ano ba yung dapat nila gawin? So, syempre, they have to talk about kung ano ba yung signal nitong menses na to, diba? Which is yun nga, yung puberty. Ako, when some of the parents ask me what can they do about it or how can they discuss it with their children or with, especially dun sa little girls nila, syempre, they have to start with yung anatomy. Ano ba yung vulva? Ano ba yung yung pagkakaiba ng vulva from a penis, diba? And that should be age-specific. Kasi syempre, hindi mo na pwedeng biglain yung mga little girls about it, diba? Pero yun nga, it all starts with really being objective about it. Okay? Tapos, I also like to tell yung mga parents about menstrual hygiene, diba? Which is important kasi ang daming period myths din dito sa Philippines, you know? Yung mga first menses, have you heard about it? Yung mga first menses, dapat ipapahid daw sa mukha. I'm sure you've heard of it. Oo, diba? Yung mga ganung mga period myths that we have to also correct. Okay? Tapos, syempre, isa sa mga signs na yung dala ng menses is pwede ka nang mabuntis, right? Pregnancy. It's a very, very sensitive topic dito sa Philippines, and I think one of the reasons bakit ang taas ng teenage pregnancy rates din natin is because yun nga, nahihiya tayo to discuss about it when dapat yung mga parents yung mga nag-guide sa mga children about having to do these things later on as an adult. And yet we discover about sex in media or
Sa
diba?
peers.
Sa peers. Yung iba nga by trial and error. So, ayun. But it's supposed to be a scientific thing or parang something that we could actually learn in our school. So again, education na naman tayo. Yun. Tapos, one of the things na, that I discuss about mainly in social media is yung different menstrual products. Kasi, as Filipinos, medyo limited tayo sa napkins. Minsan, hindi nga natin alam na may tampons pala, di ba? So, ayun, we can discuss it. I also discuss about the different na types of napkins, mga menstrual products like menstrual disc, menstrual cup, tapos yun nga, yung use of tampons. Kasi nga, menses shouldn't limit a female, di ba? Kasi minsan, yun na, isa pang period myth na parang dapat di ka nagliligo pag nag-mens ka. Dapat hindi ka nag-swimming or di ka nag-physical activity, di ba? All of those period myths have to be debunked. Kasi nga, ang daming mga nalilimit tuloy yung mga ibang mga babae pag nag-menstruate sila when dapat hindi naman. So yun, ang dami.
Kasama rin talaga yung menstrual hygiene kasi diba, para maiwasan din pa yung ibang mga sakit. Ganyan.
Yes, oo.
Mga ibang infection, dapat natuturo din yun. Kasi syempre, parang as a child, hindi mo pa naman talaga alam yung ibang mga bagay, gano'n.
Yes.
So, ayun, nagulat din ako dati na may towel, parang may mini, bimpo kami sa CR. Tapos, pala siya for wiping the private part. Tapos, hindi ko dati alam yun na, nung bata ko na, kailangan pala siya i-wipe, gano'n. Kasi parang dati may taga-hugas, may taga-wash ka, ganyan. Tapos parang, out of nowhere, malaki ka na. Ikaw na maghugas ng, parang gano'n.
Yeah,
parang,
oo.
parang gano'n. So, parang pag nagkaroon na ng mens, parang lalong nalilesen yung usapan about menstrual hygiene, paano gamitin yung mga products. Tapos, ayun, paano yung sinisignify nun. Parang ano siya, parang, dalaga na si ganyan. Pero hindi naman talaga.
Ang vague pa nung term na, dalaga na si ganyan. Okay. Paano, diba? Kung hindi ka nag-menstruate, hindi ka na dalaga. Diba? Ano yun?
Tapos parang lang po, parang, ganun tumakbo, dalaga ka na, ganun. Pero parang di mo naman po talaga naintindihan yung meaning, ganun. So,
Yes.
ayun, agree ako dun sa sinabi ni Doc na mahalaga talaga yung education sa sa mga bata from their parents.
Yes. At saka we shouldn't limit it to like females lang. Like, I really think that males really have to deal with it as well. Kasi syempre, alam mo naman, I mean, ang dami ding information
Yes,
about sa males, di ba? Parang, yung iba daw, parang, bakit ba hindi napipigilan ng females yung pagdugo? Like, diba?
I can confirm naman on some of that, like, especially nung pa lang, like, nung nasa elementary. Kasi parang yun din yung parang time in where usually girls have their first period. Tapos parang, yung ibang kaklase yung nakikita na parang, sila, parang alienated sila sa ganung bagay.
Yes.
So parang, sa nila, parang, ganyan. Tapos parang yung iba pag parang ginagawang, parang katutuwanan ba na parang, it should be not. And parang some of that parang nakikerry in the coming years. And ayun, para siyang parang nafi-fixate sila na parang nagiging social construct yung menstruation as a whole.
Tapos minsan din yung parang yung pag may dysmenorrhea ka, ganyan. Tapos parang yung boys parang nag-iinarte to.
See,
Parang minsan, totoo naman masakit. Tapos parang feeling nila parang minor na pain lang. Parang may sugat ka lang na kailangan mo lang tiisin.
Yes. I agree. Ang daming misinformation talaga that we really have to normalize talking about it for it to be very well accepted for something so very normal, diba? Monthly sa mga babae. Dapat normalized na talaga siya.
Para napapag-usapan din siya sa school, openly, hindi yung kailangan girl talk, ganyan, tapos nag-discern na sila.
Limited lang din.
Oo. So, dapat kailangan isama din yung mga boys din sa topic.
Nice. So, when girls get their menarche, how will they know when they'll get their period again? Like, kailan po yung next? Regular po ba agad? Or...
So, technically, in the first 2 to 3 years talaga after menarche, it's still very irregular. So, normal siya na irregular siya for the first 2 to 3 years of menarche. After menarche pala, sorry. However, yun nga, we also have to guide these parents when to have their little girls checked up, no? So, usually kasi may tinatawag na primary amenorrhea na pag at age 15, wala pang menses, then it warrants workup for the girl. Or if, kunyari, nagkaroon na siya ng breast development and then in 5 years, hindi pa siya nagkakaroon ng menses, that also warrants some workup. As well as if wala pa ring tawag nito, breast development at age 13 years old. That also warrants workup. Kasi nga, di ba, yun nga, may sequence siya. So, we also have to be guided na ang day 1 of menses yung important na tinatanong lagi. No? And that's how you track your menses. So, day 1, yung unang flow ng blood, yun na yung day 1 mo. And the average cycle length is around 28 days. So, however, yung normal, again, may be variable to some people, and yun nga, dapat aware sa kung ano yung normal at hindi normal.
Ano po ba yung importance kung bakit mahalaga tinatrack yung period?
So, syempre, as you grow older, syempre, it does signal nga, diba, that you can get pregnant na. So, one of the importance of knowing what your cycle is that, yun nga, kung kailan ka ba mabubuntis or hindi. Especially if you're sexually active. And you also have to know how to track your cycle kasi what if irregular na pala siya and that would warrant workup na, diba? So, just a rundown, yung menses natin should last around 24 to 38 days. So, from day 1 to yung end of menses mo, and then the start of the menses, yun yung, again, yung cycle length. And then, dapat up to 8 days lang siya. So, if more than or less than 8, more than siya ng 8 days usually, that's already prolonged menses. Tapos, dapat, yung medyo subjective kasi din yung flow volume, no? So, heavy or light really depends on the menstruator. So, ayun. Yun yung mga signs na normal siya. And if sa tingin mo, yun nga, you have to know what's abnormal, diba? So, that's why tracking your menses is important.
So regarding po sa PMS, ano ba po yung mga period symptoms po?
Yeah, so for PMS, that means premenstrual syndrome, no? So yun yung mga symptoms prior to getting your period naman. So usually, check natin yung aking kodigo here. Yun yung mga breast tenderness, bloating, headache, which are caused by yung fluctuation ng hormones sa isang babae, plus yung neurotransmitters. So may mga interactions sila na biochemical dyan sa taas, sa brain natin. And it causes these symptoms, no? It's different from yung primary dysmenorrhea naman, which is what yung naranasan ng mga babae when they have their menses already. Usually yung pain talaga, and then yun din yung mga constipated, and then parang or diarrhea, mga bowel symptoms, or even yung talagang headaches, at saka yung minsan hindi daw talaga sila makabangon from the pain, diba? Yun usually yung mga may dysmenorrhea.
Yung ano po ba, yung part na hindi sila makabangon, does it mean na need na po nilang ipakonsult yan, or is it normal?
Especially when it already interferes with your daily life, yes, that's already a sign na dapat magpa-check up ka.
Kasama po ba sa PMS yung iba, like nagkaka-pimples, gano'n?
Yes, may mga hormonal acne din, no? So, dermatologists would refer their patients na may ganon to us. And, yun nga, sometimes it has to do with the hormone levels as well, which is why yung mga patients with PCOS, yun, isa sa mga nagkakaroon din ng mga symptoms like that, yung mga acne.
Yung iba po na, yung diba, parang pag irritable yung babae, sabihin nila, malapit na magkaroon yan.
Yeah, yeah, so parang part siya ng premenstrual syndrome. So, ayun. I think some of us talaga really experience it every now and then, yeah.
Since hormone imbalance po causes na PMS, meron ba pong need na gawin para like ma-balance yung hormones? Like, does it falls on lifestyle only, or kung meron pang ibang routine or habit yung isang tao?
Yeah, so yes, it does have to do a lot with yung lifestyle din ng mga tao. And actually dun sa book nga namin for OB-GYNEs, one paragraph dun under dysmenorrhea is that exercise actually really does help yung mga symptoms ng dysmenorrhea. So, yes, it's proven na exercise does help the symptoms. Eating well, a well-balanced diet is also important. So, lessen yung mga red meat, fried foods, yung mga ganon. That can also cause inflammation in the body kasi dysmenorrhea is also caused by an increase in the prostaglandins or inflammatory stuff din sa katawan. Yun.
Doon na, add ko lang po dun sa exercise. Parang, totoo po ba yung pag kunyari daw nag-physical activities ka, ganyan, strenuous activities, parang mas mabilis daw po matapos yung menstruation, or like, mas nagiging heavy yung flow for...
Parang wala naman na causality talaga yung exercise when it comes to period flow. However, it could cause yung mga talagang athletes, diba, minsan nagiging irregular yung menses nila or nawawalan silang menses due to the increase in the physical activity, which causes the a hormonal imbalance kasi nga mataas yung cortisol levels, ganon, which also medyo nagkakaroon ng fluctuations na iba din sa hormones, and yun, nagkakause ng amenorrhea.